What is up? How is everyone doing today? Today we're going to be recording a video talking about Duet Night Abyss, as well as some of the woes and some of the issues that the community has brought forth. Some of these things aren't necessarily bad things, but I do want to talk about what the community sentiment. Hi, my name is ShawnSetGo, and we make a lot of videos talking about community discussions as well as thoughts that people bring forth that could bring forth a lot of fixes and making things better in the game overall. So the first one that came up that I thought was kind of funny was this one right here. And it says, there is no escape from the plunge meta. And you can see in this video that once they start, it's basically just a waiting game. Once the waves come in, you jump, you slam the ground. Some, of course, are better than others as far as characters go. But as fun as this feels at first, I don't think that this is necessarily how you want a game to ultimately result. It's fine if this is like attacks of opportunity. I think certain games do this well with, like, you can assassinate like a certain character. If you're dropping from the sky, it's essentially like a big execution move, but it's only for one. But in this case, there's a lot of opportunities for this to occur that you're just spamming plunge over and over again. And let's see what the people are saying. It says, haven't seen anything on him yet, so nice to know he's good. How much do you have invested on him? Would like a level 40 or 50 clear, level 80 mission on easy. Yeah, no, I would say my experience so far with the combat, as enjoyable as it is, you are able to clear missions that are double, like 20, 30 levels above you. So that's actually a neat feeling. So, and then honestly, it says right here, probably the best AoE DPS at the moment. So it seems like big AoEs, I mean, this is typical for Gacha. The big AoEs are way more important. I haven't really seen much of like single target damage being the go-to here. So, I mean, if that's the standard, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I would say the plunge meta, kind of a thing that I think personally should be fixed. If they made it one of two ways, making it you can defeat bigger enemies either through some sort of execution move, or two, the knockback is there, but maybe not the damage, or the inverse, which is when you plunge, maybe bringing in enemies to kind of group them up easier. I've seen both, and I think both work. I just don't think it works like it should right now. It just feels kind of spammy. Not a big fan of it. And then it says you have a psyche that clears a level 80 enclosioner under 40 seconds. So you can see right at the beginning here, popping the ults. I love the dash, but I even love more. You jump in the air and you just start wailing on them. Some mobs actually have decent like tracking, or like they have decent aerial abilities, but as long as you're decent at the like dodging mechanic, it's actually pretty easy to just float in the air quite smoothly. I think this is more of an issue with dodge as a whole and the use of shift currently, where it doesn't feel like there's enough to face you when you're aerial. And this also applies for weapons too, because if you jump and then you also attack with a weapon, you're kind of floating there, and there's nothing anybody on the ground could do anything about it really. So I don't know if this is more of like nerfing that, or if this is more of making people who are ground have better anti-air, I guess. Says, I'm up for gameplay questions since I'm basically one of the highest account level players in the beta test right now. Wow. How long does the flying mode last? Her ultimate form drains her HP, then starts draining sanity. So if you ever get a healer, she's basically lasts a very long time, potentially permanent ult form. Really? That's crazy. I thought it was just sanity. I didn't realize it was health as well. What's your opinion on current co-op content? Currently, you're awarded more for playing solo since the good farm stages can't be done co-op. I kind of prefer that. I don't think I think things should work co-op, but I don't think it should prefer co-op, just because it kind of excludes people who play these games solo. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Could you even do more with crits of impetus on weapon? Tested with 280% damage myself and got a 25-second kill. Wow. It says multi-shot is too important for fast-firing weapons. I see. That makes sense. That's actually a lot. But all this to say, there are some things in the game that are obviously going to be spammy that you could outright nerf. I don't think that's necessarily the answer, but the community sentiment obviously here, I don't think you want something like this, like, you know, you're level 60, you're facing a level 80 to be this simple. They're not doing something overly complex here. They're kind of just, it's just one ability here when you think about it. So I do think that this needs to be fixed in regards of, you need to either buff the enemy they're facing or fix how it works. So maybe whenever you're shooting, you're actively falling, you're kind of going down. That way you kind of come down to earth quicker. And that way it's more of a mobility. That way you're not just sitting in the air, just spamming one ability and nothing's happening to you. It kind of makes it unfair in that way. But let's talk about big overarching ideas. Let's not just talk about the simple like onesie twosies. Let's talk about the reviews. So this review actually is quite in depth, and this says, I played for a couple of days in the closed beta and my impression is quite mixed. The game is very good with aspects, and I will not dwell on the positive aspects. They're already visible, but the negative ones are not so obvious, and I'll tell you about them. The first thing is that it's very annoying is the shift, and we talked about this a second ago. So I have to judge whether or not to use it by using nondescript animations that overlap with a bunch of flashes from bumps and numbers. In a mix of flashes of numbers, and when you also need to keep an eye on the most non-bright, nondescript object overlaid with the bright flashes. I will say that some enemies teleport, and it's not only hard to respond with shift when they're teleporting, but also when they reappear somewhere. I've gotten like stomped upon because it's hard to tell when that's officially happening, or your response to time has to be almost immediate. So yeah, that has been quite unfortunate. The second no less annoying thing is the overlie sensitive trigger of clamping on a heavy blow. Moreover, a lot of heavy blows, like a heavy slash, are not very convenient, do not cause impressive damage, break animations, and it is better to not use them and spam short left clicks. Exactly. I didn't talk about this in my first impressions video, but I didn't realize for a long time that holding your heavy click or your heavy attack doesn't start your combo, and it in fact interrupts it. So like it's not a good idea, and most things want you to get that max rank combo for max damage, so you're better off just doing small left clicks. And it does have a reasonable time. I do like how it upgrades over time. It does give you a decent amount of time. It's not like Devil May Cry where you have to like be constantly going. It's not like Diablo either, where it's like you have to chain your kills very carefully. Gives you plenty of time to do it. But I do think the problem with it is that you want to do heavy attacks because they should, one, have like, you know, like block break or something like that, or knockback, but it should be something that's heavy damage. There should be a reason why you're doing that heavy attack. I think Weathering Waves is a great example of a game that does that well. Moving on, assistance. The game has the mechanics of summoning 2 characters from your list to help you, and I'll tell you honestly, I haven't seen much such dumb dummies for a long time. They don't shy away. They don't pay attention to the surroundings. They don't try to follow the mechanics, and at least not stand in a field where they are constantly being hit by damage. If they have close combat, they jump on the enemy and beat him until they die. The situation is slightly better with long range combat, not by much. I wouldn't say this bothers me a whole bunch, because I'm used to like Dark Souls level assistants where they come in and they're just kind of like, they're target dummies. I would think of more of them as target dummies. I don't think this is a huge deal, but I understand like the disdain with the lack of intelligence from your assistants. Fourth, very clear interfering point is a long-range ammunition. When you fight a boss, for a very short time, characters with long-range combat run out of ammo, and in principle, the game does not have normal mechanics for restoring ammo without killing small creeps from which they fall out. With heavy damage, you also mess up 10 rounds for the boss, but the whole life of the boss, you'll mess up 30 shots. And that's nothing at all. As a result, your ranged character, whom you called to help yourself, spends all the ammo in the first couple of minutes in the battle and then runs around for you for 10 to 20 minutes. Sometimes throwing a skill when mana is restored, and it also takes a very long time to recover in battle. I will say this could be amended by more variety with what weapons provide, or more upgrading and scaling opportunities for what weapons provide as far as ammo restoration, as well as mag capacity. I think that those are good, like as far as like in the beginning, they don't feel as restricting, but later on they don't feel as good, or they don't get as good as they should be. I think that in a boss fight, you should have a limited amount of uses with it. I don't think you should be able to use it the entire time, but I do like to use it in moments where it's like, well, I can't get in a close range fight, so I should use my gun. Because to me, how the gun should be used is basically whenever the boss has a mechanic that brings you far away from them, you should be able to pull out the gun and still participate in combat long range. And I think that's something that's very unique to do at Night Abyss that I like a lot. So 100% can be improved, needs to be improved 100%. The fifth point is that the bosses are somewhat stupidly limited for their strength. Sibella's boss, or whatever her name is, Sybil, I think it's Sybil. In general, the electric woman has so few techniques in her arsenal, and most importantly, even the AI managing the boss herself apparently analyzes the effectiveness of her technique. There are sword strikes that can be ignored. There are teleportations that can be ignored. There's AoE that can be ignored, because in all of this, there's no damage to the player. I would say sometimes scaling damage is the answer here, but in all honesty, what it really needs to be is, if you're going to have few mechanics, that's totally fine. Dark Souls works on this in this regard. I know I mentioned this a lot, but I don't think boss mechanics need to have very complex or like very high damaging mechanics. They just need to be something that you can get tripped off and it can interrupt your gameplay and make it tougher for you to get your completion quicker. Because beyond just it being difficult, things also have to be to where you're having to interrupt your normal rotation. You can't just spam click. As long as you can't just spam click, I think that'll feel still fun. Now, is like as you scale things up to higher difficulties and as you get higher level, of course things should do more damage to you. I don't think making things was it like target dummies where they just have tons of health, like millions of health. I don't think that's the answer. I also don't think getting one shot by things feels good either. I just think mechanics should play off of how players are going to play. So for example, her mechanic that brings up all these orbs, if these orbs are tracking me down more effectively and I have to move constantly just to get out of their range, then it's doing its job. Should I get hit by, if I get hit by 1, I'm going to get hit by 12? No, I don't think that's a thing. But I do think that needs to change to where it's more adaptive to what's happening to you and more, I guess, more consequential. If you get hit by them, that just makes sense to me. If you do go through the graphics, it's beautiful, but for some reason the developers have immersed the whole world in some kind of whitish haze. 100%. Yes, I don't get this. I think it's a weird like brightness sun filter. I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't know why it's there. I haven't been able to take like really good screenshots, especially for like my thumbnails, because of this, because it looks so bad. So I really need one AI artist to figure out this real quick so I can get decent thumbnails, or 2 to remove that somehow. Because I maxed the graphics and I don't know what's causing it myself. And the point that would be much more difficult to fix and slightly depressing is the binding of the character's damage to any weapon, as well as the absence of all types of weapons for all types of damage. The point is that it really spoils the game for me. If I'm playing with a butterfly, for example, Psyche, which has everything designed for wind damage, and I need to take the wind element as a weapon, then I can't take a two-handed sword with wind damage of a scythe. Wind damage, for example, is just not in the game. I would say this is kind of something that's going to be added over time. Moreover, the character has a predisposition to damage of a certain type of weapon. And the butterfly, for example, has a pole weapon, scythe, spear, or rapid fire rifle. In my opinion, does not have an aerial view of the game, and the predisposition does so much damage. And without it, there's so little damage that on the legendary character from the wind, the legendary wind bow is just some kind of garbage without damage. Why restriction was made is not clear to me. I want to run like a butterfly, a two-handed one, and that's it. I will say this is kind of, I don't want to say it's a non-issue, because I don't want to disagree entirely with what they're saying, because I get what they're saying. I get that sometimes you want to, like, outside of having the characters, like their specific weapon, their legendary weapon, that you want to have, like, you want to play with the stats in a way where you can try different things, but still get the stats that you want. I do think the limitation is a good thing, personally. I come from a background of playing MMOs, where in MMOs, your loot tables limit what you can get, and not every loot table is going to have something that is necessary for you, but it is cool to see how those pieces fit very well. And maybe that's something that right now they don't have something that fits well with that character, but this is something that could come in time. I think it's something that's easily fixable with just more things available on the inventory list and more stats to work with. And so this is something that I don't want to say is a non-issue, but I do think it's I would say it's too soon to judge, to be like it's not in a good state right now. But I get where they're coming from. I understand. P.S. Well, perhaps one more point can be added, which has already been emphasized by many, is that the developers generally have very bad damage balance in late game, and after the character takes 60th level and puts on the average outfit, all bosses on the contrary sink very much and are killed in seconds instead of the normal 5 to 10 dance minutes. This is a negative factor in my opinion, since the game is built specifically on endgame content and it currently does not work from the word at all, and whether the developers will be able to make a normal balance of character taking damage, causing damage to them at any stage of level is another question. I would say the word's a little bit hard to read here, but I guess what they're saying here is that once you hit certain breakpoints, things drop off, and it seems that the end game is still quite simplistic. I would say this is a matter of balancing. I do think that this is probably an attempt to avoid it being too focused on one particular meta, and so everyone kind of feels a certain level strong or overly strong. I think this is something that's sort of balanced out with time because you kind of want to set your baseline and figure out where those are, and then from there things will scale up. I think we're being a little bit too rushing to to judge where the game is at right now, but I think this is something that can be fixed as damage and numbers start to balance themselves out. So I would say very fair points, a lot of really good points in regards to things that need to be fixed, mainly like the dodging and mainly with like NPCs and how they work, your assistants work. So a lot of good points here, but ultimately, let me know in the comments, what are the things right now that are bothering you the most in Duet Not Abyss? What do you think they could fix the most? And what are the things that right now you think is working very well, or things that that work so well that you want them to be expanded upon? Let me know the good and the bad. So let me know in the comments. Of course, give the video a like if you liked it. Subscribe to the page while you're at it. Of course, we do stream on twitch.tv/ShawnSetGo. I'd love to see you there. We will be playing more things like Duet Not Abyss, as well as other games. You can join us there and in our Discord, where we share things from Gacha games all the time. So love to see you there. But until next time, catch you in the next one. Peace.